I'm getting tired of talking about American history. What should I talk about now? Oh, I have an idea. Alright. Whatever I hit, I talk about. As each country within Latin America has carved itself a unique national identity, Brazil seems to be one of the most peculiar. Being a descendant to the Portuguese rather than the Spanish crown, its sheer size compared to its neighbors, and an active role it took in World War II made it sometimes an anomaly in Latin America. However, it is an issue that Brazil has shared with her neighbors that is not unique. Her inability to form an effective, stable democracy in a pluralistic society like the United States can be attributed to her peculiar independence from Portugal and the scar of its slaveholding legacy. Starting with its mother country, Portugal, in a sense, was Spain, only less so. Where the Portuguese were Catholic, the Spanish were piously still stuck in the mindset of the Crusades and the Reconquista. Where Portugal looked to extract wealth from her colonies from agricultural products shipped from the coast, Spain employed an even more massive slave system with regions such as Mexico and Peru essentially becoming military occupation with their inland capitals prevented from even trading between one another without Spain as the middleman. This formed a different relationship to Brazil's lords than to the Spanish subjects, where there was embers of revolution kindling in the hearts of San Martin and Simón Bolívar. The Brazilian, who was thinking of independence in the wake of the United States War of Independence, was typically less of the overthrow of the entire rotten structure of the monarchy than it was with self-rule. This is also thanks in part to Napoleon, who after his invasion of Spain and Portugal forced the Portuguese royal family to form a government in exile in Brazil. Here, the monarchy based out of their colonial holding began to build a closer relationship with their subjects and direct ruled the crown based in Rio de Janeiro. With improved infrastructure and open trade with other powers, the status of Brazil as a national polity would eventually culminate in the recognition of the dual monarchy of Portugal and Brazil in 1815. Although earlier efforts to build a new revolutionary state in the Americas and the image of the American-Haitian wars for independence have been tested, most notably in the Tiradentes, or Tooth Puller, conspiracy in 1789, any new national identity of Brazil would be centered on the rule of the hereditary monarchy. The final nail in the coffin for the hopes would get away from the power of the monarchy and its baby steps towards nation-building would come in the decision to leave Pedro de Alcântara, son of Dom Maio VI, as Prince Regent of the Brazilian Kingdom while he answered the call back to unstable Lisbon. The Partido Brasileiro, the Portugal party founded in Brazil in the effort to see it completely independent from Portugal, had gathered a petition to beg the Prince Pedro to stay and rule independently. The petition itself, new Brazilian identity, was fixated on the rule of the monarchy, saying, "We would lose the glory with nostalgic tears with unforeseen and mysteriously combined events brought us, opening among us an epoch that is not represented by Providence in our ceremonies, but also has allowed for the emancipation of Brazil at the time in which, possessed by an indisputable idea, it begins to rise up to reject the colonial system. Whether moved by the love of his subjects, or simply having a member of the Portuguese royal family rule in Brazil and no monarch at all, Pedro chooses to stay and is coronated the first emperor of Brazil on October 12, 1822. So Brazil is now a recognized independent Portuguese-speaking monarchy, but that is only half of the explanation. The other can be blamed on the slave economy that Brazil relied on throughout its infancy, well into its maturity that produced a strong-armed authority. The practice of slavery tends to create states of suspicion and paranoia in the societies that practice them, as the fear of slaves revolt and create a large military and state apparatus to prevent such a thing. If the servile wars that plagued the Roman Republic were evidence enough, then the enslavement of Africans in the New World would require quite the security apparatus. It is why the success of the Haitian Revolution in 1804 sent the slave-owning societies of the Americas into heightened alert, and the paranoia of a similar uprising in Brazil led to the Portuguese taking measures to crack down on any potential slave uprising. We see this in the interrogation of the supposed priest named Father Joaquim de Souza Ribeiro, who was arrested for allegedly attempting the very thing in the region of Cayenne in 1814. Simply lamenting their luck and the injustice of their captivity was succession enough of preparing them to revolt. With accounts of extreme treatment of some of these slaves that could only be described truthfully as barbaric or to be believed, like that of Thomas Ewbank, then to tie their hands and feet together, hoist them off the ground, and then bear them as near death as possible, would only create a class of people ever resentful and opportune to violently resist an authoritarian sentiment held by the rest. The trend of slave economies always tends to turn into one of those eagle-maiden death spirals, where the slave labor of agricultural estates based on cash crops stunts the growth of technological advancements, while also making an unfair market for free labor, causing income inequality, which in turn breeds further resentment of the government. Like the Chesapeake colony and the latifundias in Roman Iberia, where there is a population of free people with little trust in economic success, they too are prone to revolt just as the slaves. The numerous revolts in the early years of the independent Brazilian Empire, mostly led by free laborers and business owners, they grew little faith in the Brazilian system of the conservative monarchy and its massive slave economy. When it comes to building stable democracies, the most important factor should be that the people of the country have enough trust in that the disparate parts of society are all doing their part to maintain social cohesion. Modern Sweden and Japan have very little in common culturally, yet have some of the most stable social cohesion in the last half-century. In a study done in 2014 from Our World Data, Brazil, along with other Latin American nations, scored among the lowest in trust in either their government or their neighbors. From studying the effects that a strong-arm monarchy and a parasitic slave society has done to the national identity of Brazil, one can see how the current issues facing Brazil's modern republic can be traced to the domestic issues first created from the independence and how the heart and the brain of the Brazilian people have often been at odds.
Anyway, thanks for watching. Excuse me, I have a Max Payne 3 cosplay to meet.
Se liga na fita, os otários estão maquinados no morro pelo que falaram. Pode atirar, depois prestarem também um socorro. Abre o olho, o cara é piolho, é sempre um mano dos nossos. O inimigo tem astra, barca, blaze, também tem moto. É zona sul, não meu bairro. Me notei, não deixei rastro. Comentaram, forjaram, 12 barancas no bafo. Mas no bairro eu pego meu filho, na fé vinha vindo, na fé vou seguir. Deus que me livre na mira dos tiros, manego, não fico, não brinco nem mosco. Vendo só vejo desgosto, o barriga acorda com ódio. Filho do céu, não pode ser réu, quem vem das ruas não joga fácil.